Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Sports. And Rassie Erasmus has just announced a group of 54 players that will attend a second Springbok alignment camp ahead of the start of the international season, which will begin on the 28th of June against the Barbarians down in Cape Town. And a very, very interesting alignment camp, collection of players. And given the fact that now it's 54 and there's been players who are added to it, there are a couple of players that miss out. And now we're starting to sort of see very much who is going to be part of, I think, the core sort of group of the box this year. There are some players unavailable due to injury, such as Ulrich Lowe and Frans Malherbe, and I've actually got the full list here. Frans Malherbe, Ulrich Lowe, Ben Jason Dixon, Dion Free, and Trevor Nyakane. But there are also some new names in the forms of Juarno Augustus, Emmanuel Tshituka, as well as the very, very prominent Hendrikse Makhaza, who has just been named a Blast Cup Player of the Year for the second year in a row, and has also just signed with the Cheetahs. So his meteoric rise continues. But a couple of players left out, and interesting to see who's been included, because I do think when we get our first sort of Springbok squad, inverted commas, this is very close to what it'll be. Maybe it might be a bit smaller, but I do think we will start naming quite sort of a wide squad with regards to who will play against the Barbarians versus who will play against Italy, and then sort of the squad that we'll see during the Rugby Championship. Before we get into it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. This is the players who have been invited. So there are going to be two sort of segments to it. It is a physical one in Cape Town, and then as well as a virtual alignment camp. So every single player that potentially is on the radar has been invited. So the following players going to the in-person camp are as follows: Renzo du Plessis, Hendrikse, Hendrikse Verscher, Cameron Hanekom, Vincent Cox, Siya Kolisi, Wilco Low, Bongi Minambi, Intuka, Salman Murat, Oxenchair, Ruan Nokia, Asenate and Klabakanya, Geos Dennekamp, Vincent Tshituka, Marco Verstappen, Jan Hendrik Wessels, Kobus Wiese, and Jasper Wiese. Very interestingly is the fact that Juarno Augustus has been invited, for example, to the alignment camp. But if you look at the players coming to the physical camp, no Marcel Coetzee, who has been playing very, very good rugby recently. Lots of people speaking about the fact that he could be on the edge of returning to the box, but not happening just yet for him. Interesting also to see that no Evan Roos, for example. So, you know, that's a big sort of absentee, inverted commas. No Franco Horn, I think, is quite a big absentee. No Ruan Fent is a bit of a strange one for me as well, given the fact that he got capped last year. So Vincent Tshituka seems to have sort of leapfrogged a couple of them, which is quite interesting. And what's also interesting is, for example, obviously, you know, with the injuries to Frans Malherbe, Trevor Nyakane, Asenate Klabakanya, and Hendrikse Verscher, I think are very much battling it out to potentially be, you know, that big sort of tighted option after a Wilco Low. I think right now it's got that starting number 3 jersey pretty much on lockdown. So the props are going to be interesting, but really cool to see Vincent Tshituka part of an alignment camp, the first time really to be involved in the box, aside from that sort of Springbok Gold versus Springbok Green game a few years ago, which was basically a trials game. And then this is very cool when you read out the backs over here. Lekanya Andre Estes, Aphelele Fassi from the Sharks, all we kind of know. Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, Jaden Hendrikse, Jordan Hendrikse. I think lots of people will be talking about the fact that both those two might be considered quite lucky to be involved in the current form, not really playing at their best, but very much core members of the box these days, really. As well as Ethan Hooker involved there. Kwaan Horn, Villileroux back involved. Mani Liebach, Makazulu Mapimpi, Intercause Makhaza, brackets UCT. Really, really cool to think that this is a player who's yet to actually have played at a Stormers level, for example, and or at a Currie Cup level. He's actually signed with the Cheetahs, so he'll play a Currie Cup for them, and yet he's been involved in a Springbok alignment camp, which goes to show that I think he'll be at the Cheetahs for maybe one season, and then I think he'll get picked up by a stronger side. Caden Moody, Morne van den Berg, Edel van der Merwe, Damian Willemse, and Grant Williams all in and around the mix as well. So still no Warwick Gelant, for example. Some people talking about the fact that maybe we might be seeing him in and around the setup. Not to be, no Henk van Wyk. I think injuries really sort of haltering his opportunity to get into the box there, as well as, for example, something like Lorenzo Julius also now dropping out of the alignment camp. And then if we look at the virtual players involved, Juarno Augustus gets his first call-up in the sort of Rassie era. Lourt Diago, Jean-Luc Depree, interesting to see that he's still involved. Peter Steph the Toy, Thomas the Toy, Jean Klein, Malcolm Marks, Franco Master, Kwagga Smith, Arcus Neyman, as well as Marius van der Merwe, who continues to be on the radar. You know, no Joseph Dweber, for example. No Andre Hugo Venter, for example. But Marius van der Merwe very much there. Kurtley Orense, Damon Dialendi, Faf de Klerk, Chesn Colby, Jesse Creel, Andre Paul, and Kobus Ranach are involved from a backline point of view. Lots to talk about. Now, if you look at sort of exactly what Rassie Erasmus has said, he said over here, it's always difficult to reduce the size of the squad with the abundance of talent in South African rugby. But we are limited in the number of players we could select for the camp, and we are confident we have sufficient cover in all positions within this group. Now, that last sentence very much, I think, talks about the fact that this is not a case of, oh, well, geez, these are just some of the players that will get an opportunity this time. These are very much the front runners. These are the players who are, ahead of the line, really, in terms of being involved in that first box squad. So very interesting to have an Makhaza, for example, involved in a squad where they're actually leaving out players like a Juarno Julius, like a Hendrikse van Wyk, to bring in a Juarno Augustus when you're leaving out an Hendrikse and you're leaving out a Franco Horn, a Ruan Venter, Tshituka coming in, example, ahead of those and the likes of that. So that's not to say that we won't see those sort of players. I'm sure we'll see. Something like a Ruan Venter, for example, I strongly believe he will be involved in the box this year. I think Hendrikse as well. But I'm really glad to see Juarno Augustus being involved. This is somebody who's been playing really good rugby overseas, and I think ticks all the boxes for exactly what we want as a Springbok number 8. I think if he hadn't gone overseas, I think he probably would have been involved sooner, and I think he would have been in around the box there, but he would have been capped. But it's good to see that he has his form at the moment is not being ignored, and he is back in the mix. Tshituka, well, this has been a long time coming, hasn't it? In terms of getting the paperwork sorted so that he can be eligible to represent the box. And whenever I've spoken to him, he's always said that is his number one goal is to play Springbok rugby. And very much, I think, a learning curve really for Makhaza. I don't think we're going to see him play this year, for example, but very much understanding what he needs to do when he goes to the Cheetahs to get himself into the mix. In terms of what the alignment camp's going to be, so over here it says it's a series of boardroom sessions over 2 days. And as mentioned, the season will kick off on the 28th of June with the first ever home game between the Springboks and the Barbarians. Speaking about Rassie Erasmus spoke about the team's preparation, saying the coaches and management staff have been working around the clock to ensure that we are prepared as possible for that what will be a challenging season. All the operational logistical aspects are in place for everything to run as smoothly as possible, so we're excited for the season ahead. 54 players. These are the players I think we'll see a lot of across the season. Will we see a debut for Tshituka, a day for Juarno Augustus, a day for Makhaza maybe? The other uncapped players part of the squad include Renzo du Plessis, Netley Bashir, Asante Klabakanya, Marnus van der Merwe, and Kobus Wiese. I find the Renzo du Plessis one quite strange, to be perfectly honest. He's not played a lot of rugby for the Lions. And when he has, I don't think he's been phenomenal. He had a really good game the other day, but I think something like a JC Pretorius and Franco Horn and Ruan Venter have been far more consistent over the few months. But obviously, they're seeing something in Renzo du Plessis that's particular to him that the Bok management really like. What do you think of the squad? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.